The handcuffs went on in the kitchen. Not the back office, not the staff entrance, the kitchen, where 3 other employees stood watching while a black woman in a white uniform was cuffed by 2 officers and walked through the marble hallway of a $40 million penthouse. Daisy Moran did not resist. She did not cry. She kept her hands still and her back straight as they led her past the grand piano, past the dining room where she had served meals for 15 years, past the portrait of a woman she had loved like a second mother, and into the elevator. The charge was grand larceny. The accusation? That she had stolen $50,000 worth of jewelry from the personal safe of Craig Toiver, a billionaire hedge fund manager whose name appeared on buildings, charity boards, and the annual Forbes list. Craig stood in the hallway and watched her leave. He didn't say a word. He didn't have to. His attorneys would say everything for him. But what Craig Toiver did not know, what nobody in that penthouse knew, was that Daisy Moran had not stolen anything. She had been retrieving something that belonged to her, and the proof was not in the safe. It was in a document that had been sealed in the office of an estate attorney for 3 years, waiting for exactly this moment. What Daisy produced in that courtroom didn't just destroy the case, it reversed it. The billionaire didn't just lose the lawsuit, he lost the inheritance. And the judge didn't just dismiss the charges, she opened a new case against him. Pause for 2 seconds and help me do something fun. Comment your city and country. I want to see how global this community really is, and I am looking for the 2 viewers watching the farthest apart today, so I can pin the winner. Now back to the story, because things are about to get very interesting. Daisy Moran started working for the Toiver family when she was 27 years old. She was hired as a housekeeper for the family's Upper East Side penthouse in Manhattan. 6,200 square feet, 4 bedrooms, a wraparound terrace, and a view of Central Park that made people stop in the hallway just to stare. But Daisy wasn't hired by Craig. She was hired by his mother. Virginia Toiver was 71 years old when Daisy started. She was the matriarch of the Toiver family, the widow of the man who founded Toiver Capital, and the sole trustee of the family estate, an estate worth approximately $1.8 billion. Virginia was sharp, elegant, private, and very particular about who entered her home. She interviewed Daisy for 45 minutes. She asked about her family, her daughter, her background, her education. Daisy was honest, single mother, daughter named Talia, age 2, high school diploma, 5 years of housekeeping experience in hotels and private residences. No criminal record, no references from wealthy families. Virginia hired her on the spot. "I don't need someone who knows how to clean a penthouse," Virginia said. "I need someone who looks me in the eye when she talks." Daisy cleaned the penthouse. She cooked meals. She managed the laundry. But over the years, her role shifted. Virginia's health began to decline. First mobility, then memory, then independence. By her 4th year in the house, Daisy was no longer just the housekeeper. She was Virginia's primary caretaker. She helped her bathe. She helped her dress. She sat with her at night when the anxiety came. She read to her when the words on the page stopped making sense. Virginia's son, Craig, visited the penthouse once a month, sometimes once every 2 months. He lived in a separate residence in Greenwich, Connecticut. He managed a $4.2 billion hedge fund. He called his mother on Sundays, usually for 11 minutes. Daisy knew because she answered the phone. "How is she?" Craig would ask. "She's well, Mr. Toiver." "Good. Tell her I'll visit next week." He usually didn't. It was Daisy who noticed when Virginia stopped remembering the names of the flowers on the terrace. It was Daisy who called the neurologist when Virginia got lost in her own hallway. It was Daisy who sat in the hospital room when the diagnosis came back, early-stage Alzheimer's, and held Virginia's hand while the doctor explained what would happen next. Craig flew in from Greenwich that evening. He stayed for 2 hours. He spoke with the doctors. He signed paperwork. He told Daisy to keep things running and left. Daisy kept things running for 11 more years. During those 11 years, Virginia and Daisy developed a relationship that existed entirely outside Craig's awareness. Virginia told Daisy things she told no one else about her marriage, her regrets, her fear of losing herself before she could say goodbye properly. And in her clearer moments, Virginia made decisions. One of those decisions happened in the 7th year. Virginia summoned Arthur Doherty, her personal estate attorney, to the penthouse on a Tuesday afternoon while Craig was in London for a conference. "Arthur, I want to make a change to my will," Virginia said. Arthur opened his briefcase. "What change, Virginia?" Virginia looked at Daisy, who was standing by the door, ready to leave. "Sit down, Daisy," Virginia said. "This involves you. Subscribe now and stay to the end, because I am going to show you one clause in Virginia's will that her own son never read. And when I reveal what it says, you will understand why the jewelry was never stolen. It was owed. This is not a theft story. This is an inheritance story. And the person who inherits will shock you." Virginia Toiver died on a Sunday morning in October. She was 86. Daisy was beside her. Craig was in Connecticut. He arrived 4 hours later. The funeral was private. 200 guests, a church on Fifth Avenue. Daisy attended but sat in the back row. She wore a black dress she had bought at a consignment store in Harlem. Nobody spoke to her. She didn't expect them to. After the funeral, Craig moved into the penthouse. He told the staff that things would continue as normal. But within 3 weeks, normal had changed. Craig reduced the household staff from 7 to 3. He replaced Virginia's personal belongings with his own. He removed her portrait from the living room and put it in a storage closet. Daisy stayed. She cleaned. She cooked. She said nothing. 3 months after Virginia's death, Craig called Daisy into his study. He was sitting behind his mother's desk, the same desk where Virginia had signed her will. "Daisy, I've noticed some items missing from my mother's personal safe." "What items, sir?" "A pearl necklace, a diamond bracelet, 2 pairs of earrings, estimated value $50,000. They were cataloged in my mother's estate inventory. They're gone." Daisy's hands were at her sides. Her voice was calm. "I haven't taken anything, Mr. Toiver. The safe code was changed after my mother's death. Only 3 people had access: myself, the estate manager, and you. The estate manager has been verified. That leaves you. Mr. Toiver, I did not steal from your mother. I'm not asking you, I'm telling you. My attorneys have already filed a police report. You can cooperate or this gets worse." Daisy looked at him. She looked at the desk. She looked at the storage closet where he had put Virginia's portrait. "I'd like to call my daughter," she said. "You can call whoever you want after you leave." 2 officers arrived 20 minutes later. The handcuffs went on in the kitchen. Daisy Moran was booked at the Manhattan South Precinct. Grand larceny in the 3rd degree, a Class D felony. Bail was set at $25,000. She couldn't pay it. She spent the night in a holding cell. Talia Moran was 17 years old. She was a junior at a public high school in Harlem. She got straight A's. She had applied early to NYU. She found out about her mother's arrest from a phone call at 9:47 p.m. Salia did not cry. She called her mother's friend from church, a woman named Gloria, who drove to the precinct. Gloria couldn't post bail either. At 11 p.m., Talia called every number in her mother's phone looking for help. Nobody answered. At 7 a.m. the next morning, a public defender named Theo Grant was assigned to Daisy's case. He was 34, overworked, and carried 47 active cases. He met Daisy in the interview room at the courthouse. "Tell me what happened," he said. Daisy told him. 15 years, Virginia, the caretaking, the safe, the accusation. "Did you take the jewelry?" "No." "Were you ever in the safe?" Daisy paused. This was the moment where most people lie or deflect. Daisy did neither. "Yes, 2 weeks ago. I opened the safe because Virginia told me to." Theo put down his pen. "Virginia is deceased. She told me before she died. She told me there was something in the safe that belonged to me. She said when the time was right, I should take it." "What was it?" "A sealed envelope. I opened it at home. Inside was a letter from Virginia and a key to a safe deposit box at Chase Bank on Madison Avenue." "What's in the safe deposit box?" "I don't know. I haven't opened it." I was arrested before I could." Theo leaned back. "Daisy, the prosecution's case is simple. You had access to the safe, you admitted to opening it, and $50,000 in jewelry is missing. Without something that explains why you were in that safe, this is going to be very hard to defend." Daisy looked at him. "Call Arthur Doherty. He's Virginia Toiver's estate attorney. He has her will." "What's in the will?" "Something Craig Toiver doesn't know about." Real quick, pause and drop a comment below. Tell me if you have ever been accused of something you didn't do, and nobody believed you until the proof came out. Share your thoughts, because this community is built on people who refuse to look away. Theo Grant called Arthur Doherty that afternoon. Arthur was 67, semi-retired, and had been Virginia Toiver's personal attorney for 22 years. When Theo explained the situation, Arthur's voice changed. "They arrested her?" "Grand larceny. She's in custody." Arthur was quiet for a long time. Then he said, "I'll be at your office in 2 hours, and I'm bringing the will." Arthur arrived with a leather briefcase and a sealed document. He sat across from Theo and opened the will, a 41-page document, last amended 8 years before Virginia's death. "Page 34, Arthur said. "Section 9. The Daisy Moran Trust." Theo turned to the page. His eyes moved across the language. Then he stopped reading. He looked at Arthur. "This is real?" "It's real. It's been filed with the surrogates court, and it's been active since Virginia's death." The will established a trust in Daisy Moran's name, funded at $3.2 million, drawn from Virginia Toiver's personal estate. The trust was created in recognition of, as the will stated, 15 years of devoted personal care, companionship, and dignity provided to me by Daisy Moran, who served not as my employee but as my closest companion during the years when my own family could not be present. But the will contained something else, something that changed the entire case. Section 9, Clause 4. The jewelry items currently held in my personal safe, the pearl necklace, diamond bracelet, and 2 pairs of pearl earrings, are to be transferred to Daisy Moran upon my death. These items are not part of the general estate. They are personal gifts, designated in this instrument, and are not subject to inheritance by any other party. The jewelry Craig accused Daisy of stealing had been left to her, by his own mother, in a will he had never read past page 12. But Arthur wasn't finished. "There's one more thing," he said. He turned to page 37. Section 11. Estate Debts and Obligations. Theo read the section. His hand went to his mouth. Virginia's will stated that Craig Toiver had borrowed $4.8 million from his mother's personal accounts over a 12-year period. The loans were documented. Interest had accrued. The will designated this debt as an obligation of the estate to be settled before any distribution to the primary heir. Craig Toiver didn't just owe his mother's estate money, he owed it $4.8 million. And the jewelry he accused Daisy of stealing, the jewelry that was worth $50,000, was listed in a separate clause as collateral against a $200,000 portion of that debt. The stolen jewelry wasn't stolen, it was owed to Daisy by a billionaire who hadn't read his own mother's will. If you love your mom, you need to subscribe right now, because at the end of this video, I am revealing one secret that Craig Toiver's own attorney discovered the night before the trial. And when I show you what he found in the estate files, you will realize this billionaire didn't just lose a court case, he lost everything his mother left behind. Trust me, the secret is worth it. Theo Grant filed a motion to dismiss all charges and submitted the will as Exhibit A. The prosecution reviewed the document and immediately understood the problem, but Craig Toiver refused to drop the case. He called it a fabrication and instructed his attorney, Ralph Mather, to proceed to trial. Ralph Mather was 56 years old and had represented Craig on 3 prior civil matters. He was smooth, expensive, and accustomed to winning. He had never represented a client who was this wrong about the facts. But Craig was paying $900 an hour, and the client wanted his day in court. The trial was held in Manhattan Criminal Court. Judge Paige Alexander presided. She was 49, meticulous, and had spent 12 years on the bench handling theft and fraud cases. She did not suffer nonsense. The courtroom was half full. Press had picked up the story. Billionaire sues Maid for stealing, made for a clean headline. Talia sat in the gallery in her school uniform. She had come directly from class. Her backpack was on the floor beside her. Craig Toiver sat at the prosecution's table looking confident. He wore a suit that cost more than Daisy's annual salary. His posture said, "I own this room." Daisy sat at the defense table in a dark blue dress Talia had ironed that morning. Her hands were folded. She looked at the judge. She did not look at Craig. Ralph Mather opened for the prosecution. "Your Honor, this is a straightforward theft case. The defendant had access to the victim's personal safe. The defendant admitted to opening the safe. $50,000 in jewelry is missing. The defendant was the last person to access the safe before the items disappeared. The evidence is clear." Theo Grant stood. He was nervous. He had never tried a case with a will as the centerpiece of the defense, but his voice was steady. "Your Honor, the defense does not dispute that Daisy Moran opened the safe. She opened it because she was instructed to, by the owner of the jewelry. Virginia Toiver, the decedent, left the jewelry to Ms. Moran in her will. The items were designated personal gifts. They were not part of the general estate. They were not Craig Toiver's to claim. He is suing a woman for stealing property that his own mother gave her." The courtroom stirred. Craig's jaw tightened. Ralph Mather whispered something to him. Craig shook his head. Judge Alexander looked at both attorneys. "I've reviewed the will submitted by the defense. I've also reviewed the estate filing with Surrogate's Court. Before we proceed, I have a question for the prosecution." She looked directly at Ralph Mather. "Mr. Mather, was your client aware that his mother's will designated the jewelry as a personal gift to the defendant?" Ralph hesitated. "Your Honor, my client maintains that the will does not accurately reflect his mother's intentions." "Did he read the will?" Ralph glanced at Craig. Craig stared at the table. "Mr. Toiver." Judge Alexander's voice sharpened. "Did you read your mother's will before filing this complaint?" Craig looked up. "I read the relevant sections. Page 34 is relevant, Mr. Toiver. It names the defendant as a beneficiary. It lists the specific jewelry items you claim were stolen. Did you read page 34? Craig's silence filled the courtroom for 8 seconds. "No," he said. Theo Grant called Daisy to the stand. "Ms. Moran, how long did you work for the Toiver family?" 15 years. "And during that time, what was your relationship with Virginia Toiver?" Daisy paused. She pressed her hands flat against her knees. "Mrs. Toiver was my employer for the first 4 years. After that, she became my friend. I cared for her through her illness. I was with her every day. I bathed her. I fed her. I held her hand when she was confused. I read to her when she forgot how." "Did her son visit during this time?" "Once a month at first, then once every 2 or 3 months. Toward the end, maybe 4 times a year." "And during those visits, did he spend time with his mother?" "He spent time with the estate manager. He signed documents. He checked the accounts. He usually stayed for 2 hours." "Did he sit with her?" Daisy's voice dropped. "He sat in the study. She sat in the living room. I sat with her." The gallery was quiet. "Ms. Moran, Virginia Toiver left you $3.2 million in a trust, plus the jewelry items in question. Did you know about this before her death?" "Yes, she told me. Not the amount. She said she had taken care of me in her will. She said, 'When I'm gone, you go to the safe. There's an envelope for you. Don't let Craig find it before you do.'" Ralph Mather stood. "Objection. The witness is testifying to statements made by the decedent. Hearsay." Judge Alexander looked at Theo. "Your Honor, the statement relates to the decedent's state of mind and intent regarding the disposition of her property. It falls under the state of mind exception to hearsay and is corroborated by the will itself." "Overruled. Continue. Theo turned back to Daisy. Why did Virginia say, "Don't let Craig find it before you do"? Daisy looked at the table. Then she looked at the judge. Then, for the first time in the trial, she looked at Craig Toiver. Because she knew her son. She knew he would take everything before anyone could stop him. She told me, "He will empty the safe the week I die. You need to get there first." Craig's face went dark. His hand pressed flat on the table. Ralph Mather put a hand on his arm. Craig shook it off. Theo asked one final question. "Ms. Moran, when you opened the safe 2 weeks ago, what did you take?" "The envelope Virginia left for me, that's all." "Did you take the jewelry?" "No, the jewelry was already gone." The courtroom went still. "When you opened the safe, the jewelry was not there." "No, sir, the safe was nearly empty. The envelope was in the back corner. But the jewelry was gone. Somebody had already taken it." Theo turned to the judge. "Your Honor, the defense contends that the jewelry designated for Ms. Moran in the will was removed from the safe before my client accessed it. The only other person with the safe code, besides the estate manager who has been verified, is the plaintiff himself, Craig Toiver." Judge Alexander looked at Craig. Craig's confidence had collapsed. His mouth opened, but no sound came out. "Mr. Toiver," the judge said, "you filed a police report stating that $50,000 in jewelry was stolen by your housekeeper. But your mother's will designates that jewelry as belonging to your housekeeper. And your housekeeper testifies that the jewelry was already missing when she opened the safe. She removed her glasses. It appears to this court that the only person who stole anything is you. If you are still watching, you are exactly the kind of person this channel was built for. Hit that subscribe button so you do not miss the next episode, because this exact pattern of inheritance fraud and courtroom reversal shows up in another billionaire family case I am covering soon, and the will clause that protects Daisy here becomes even more important in that story. Judge Paige Alexander dismissed all charges against Daisy Moran. She ordered the $25,000 bail refunded. She ordered the arrest record expunged. Then she did something the prosecution did not expect. Based on the evidence presented, I am referring this matter to the District Attorney's Office for investigation of potential filing of a false police report, perjury, and estate fraud. Mr. Toiver, you are not under arrest at this time, but I strongly advise you to retain independent counsel." Craig sat motionless. Ralph Mather leaned in and whispered, "We need to leave, now." But here is the detail I told you to wait for. The secret Craig Toiver's own attorney discovered the night before the trial. Ralph Mather had spent the previous evening reviewing the estate files Arthur Doherty had submitted. Buried in the appendix of Virginia's will, page 41, the final page, was a handwritten letter from Virginia to the surrogates court. It was dated 14 months before her death. It read, "To the court. I write this letter in sound mind, with the assistance of my attorney Arthur Doherty, to ensure that the provisions of my will are honored as written. I have reason to believe that my son, Craig Toiver, may contest or disregard the trust I have established for Daisy Moran. I have further reason to believe he may attempt to remove items from my personal safe before the estate is properly administered. I ask the court to note that the jewelry listed in Section 9 of my will has been photographed, appraised, and inventoried by my attorney. Any discrepancy between the inventory and the contents of the safe at the time of my death should be investigated as potential theft from the estate, not by Daisy Moran, but by my son." Virginia Toiver had predicted everything. Her son's greed, his accusations, the arrest, the trial. She had seen it coming years before it happened, and she had written a letter to the court, a letter nobody had read until the night before the trial, that named her own son as the likely thief. Ralph Mather read that letter at 11 p.m. the night before. He called Craig and told him to drop the case. Craig refused. He said, "My mother was not in her right mind when she wrote that." Ralph Mather knew better. He had reviewed the cognitive evaluations attached to the will. Virginia had been tested by 2 independent neurologists at the time of the amendment. Both confirmed she was competent. The letter was written in clear, precise English. It was witnessed by Arthur Doherty and a notary public. Virginia Toiver was sharper than her son ever gave her credit for, and from beyond the grave she had protected the woman who had actually been there. The district attorney opened an investigation within 10 days. The estate inventory confirmed that the jewelry was present in the safe at the time of Virginia's death, photographed, appraised, and documented by Arthur Doherty. 3 months later, the jewelry was gone. Craig Toiver was the only person who accessed the safe during that window. Craig was charged with grand larceny, filing a false police report, and attempted estate fraud. The case was settled before trial. Craig paid full restitution of the jewelry's value, plus $180,000 in penalties. The $3.2 million trust was dispersed to Daisy in full. Craig's access to his mother's estate was frozen pending a full accounting of the $4.8 million in outstanding loans. The billionaire who sued his maid for stealing was the one who stole, and his own mother had written the evidence that proved it. Daisy Moran did not move to a penthouse. She did not buy a car. She did not appear on television. She used the trust to do 3 things. First, she paid off the lease on the apartment in Harlem where she and Talia had lived for 11 years. Second, she set aside enough for Talia's full 4-year tuition at NYU. Talia had been accepted 3 weeks before the trial. She enrolled as planned. She is studying pre-law. Third, Daisy opened a small home care agency in Washington Heights. She hired 6 women, all of them former caregivers, all of them Black or Latina, all of them underpaid for the work they had done in other people's homes. The agency provides in-home care for elderly patients. It is called Virginia's House. On the wall behind the front desk, there is a framed photograph. Not of Daisy, not of the agency. It's the portrait of Virginia Toiver, the one Craig put in a storage closet. Arthur Doherty had it delivered to Daisy 2 weeks after the trial. Virginia is smiling in the portrait. She is sitting in a chair by the terrace window of the penthouse, looking out at Central Park. Daisy remembered the day the portrait was painted. She had made Virginia tea that morning. Virginia had said, "Daisy, when they paint me, I want to be looking at the park, because that's where I'm happiest. When I'm looking at something beautiful and someone I trust is nearby." Daisy hadn't understood at the time. She understood now. Talia visited the agency on its first day. She walked in, looked at the portrait, and looked at her mother. "She looks happy," Talia said. She was, Daisy said. She really was. Talia put her backpack down and sat in the chair behind the front desk. "Mom?" "Yeah?" "I want to work here on weekends." Daisy smiled. "You have school." "I know, but this is the other thing I want to learn." Daisy looked at her daughter, the girl who had ironed the blue dress before the trial, the girl who sat in the courtroom gallery in her school uniform with her backpack on the floor, the girl who was now going to be a lawyer because a dead woman had loved her mother enough to put it in writing. "Then sit down," Daisy said. "We have work to do." Craig Toiver had $4.2 billion. He had attorneys. He had the police. He had the power to put a woman in handcuffs in her own workplace and walk her through a hallway she had cleaned for 15 years. But he didn't have his mother's will. He didn't have her letter. He didn't have her inventory. And he didn't have the one thing Daisy Moran had earned over 15 years that no amount of money can buy: Virginia's trust. Not the financial trust, the real one. The kind that makes a dying woman look at the person who feeds her, bathes her, reads to her, and holds her hand at night, and say, "You are the one I trust to carry this forward." Craig Toiver spent 2 hours a month with his mother. Daisy Moran spent 15 years, and Virginia, in the end, left the evidence of that difference in 41 pages of clear, witnessed, court-filed English. The jewelry wasn't stolen. It was inherited. The maid wasn't a thief. She was a beneficiary. And the billionaire wasn't the victim. He was the one who forgot to read his own mother's will. Some people think power means never having to explain yourself. But the truth is, power means nothing when a woman you ignored writes a letter that explains everything and addresses it to a judge.
Click the video on your right to see the 3 other corporate espionage cases where self-representation destroyed billion-dollar companies, the legal loopholes they exploited, and the one statute that changes everything. You will see the patterns these strategists use, the mistakes their opponents make, and the exact moment when the trap closes.